Today we're discussing emerging growth opportunities and success strategies for fragrance brands seeking to flourish in China and the Middle East. Can you give us a visual picture of the olfactive mapping of the Middle East?
Yeah, so it's not an easy question. So let's try to sum up a little bit how is the fragrances here in the region. So basically, when we talk about fragrances in the GCC, we have a large spectrum of fragrances and of different smells, which goes to something very animalic, woody, and oud, let's say, to something more French type, more, let's say, floral, fruity. In the middle, we have also some fragrances which is called French Oriental. So this is very wide spectrum of fragrances that you can smell here also. And within the GCC, it's important to notice that there is some different clusters of fragrances. So we are able to smell some musk, some rosy notes, orange blossom, some tobacco notes, oud, and something very woody, as well as leather notes. So it's something very wide and very extensive.
Thank you. And Anne, can you give us insight into the Chinese perfume trends?
Yeah, actually, for the Chinese perfume markets, it's growing really fast just after the COVID, starting from 2020. So the olfactory economy is booming just 3 years ago in China. So based on that, we know that in China, people purchase a lot of perfume on the floral scents. It's a majority market share in China in fragrance. But now we observe that it's still the majority of the flower scents, but the woody scents is growing really fast. It's a top one growth scent in China. So this is the one trend. And the second one is that for Chinese consumer, when they perceive fragrance to be premium or not, long-lasting is very important for them. So even we know that long-lasting is not something that can really represent a premium fragrance, but for Chinese consumer, especially the young generation, they see long-lasting as very important part of a good quality of the perfume. Yeah. And then in China, we don't have a very specific perfume for men or perfume for women. They think it's something really old-fashioned. So they're really looking for some perfume that genderless, unisex. But that doesn't mean that when you launch a perfume in China, you need to claim that, oh, I'm a genderless perfume. You don't need to mention. That's how you create a visual identity and the sense to attract the markets. It needs to be really general. You don't have really strong gender identity.
That's so interesting. And can you give us insight and trends into the niche perfume market in China?
Yes, I think Lynn already said the key trends because it's similar in niche or in more mass market. What I can add, I think it's really interesting what you said about non-gender. It's something that we advise a lot in our client. It doesn't mean that you need to market that you are non-gender. It means that when you market and create some content, you don't have to say that it's more targeting to women or it's more targeting to men. So this is like just the subtlety about non-gender. After, what is trendy also in China, it's a lot of experience. What I mean is, it's not only about perfume, it's about what is also surrounding the brand. The brand needs to bring something to the consumer because it's one way for them also to distinguish themselves, to find more unique, especially among the Gen Z, when they are looking for very specific sense to be like, okay, I found this subtle niche brand that will distinguish me from my friends, for example. So this is something also in terms of marketing, branding that you need to really pay attention. Like, it's not only about selling in China, it's also about building your brand to target the consumer in China.
All right. And Lynn, what is the Chinese consumer lifestyle and consumption like in regard to perfumes?
Yeah, I think after the COVID, the lifestyle or the consumption habits for Chinese consumer really changed a lot. I think now the consumer, they still want to invest their consumption on luxury premium products, but different than before, they purely purchasing on something expensive. Now they are looking for something expensive, but with real good quality. So that means you can still sell something really premium product in China, but you need to really convince that it's represent a real good quality. And also people becoming more care about the nature and the planet. So sustainability, green trend is becoming very popular in China as well. And also for the consumers, now when they're buying something, they really want to buy something that can bring them happiness and build up their confidence and make them feel relaxed, comfortable. Yeah. So this is something really interesting that just changed after COVID. Okay. So people consumption become more rational.
Yeah. Okay. And Benjamin, in terms of the GCC, what's the difference between the UAE market and the potential in Saudi Arabia, as well as Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar?
So within the GCC, we have two big players. We have Saudi Arabia, which is a very huge market. There is 40 million inhabitants. They use perfume a lot. They fragrance themselves a lot. And it's mainly internal consumption, okay? So the brands sells mainly inside Saudi. If we want to compare with UAE markets, we are also amazing players, but globally, they export their fragrances with an extensive distribution channel. So they are able to send in US, in South America, also in China, until Australia. So it's very different. So, but we can see also a parallel with China, which is a more internal consumption, and maybe South Korea, which also has very deep channels. So in the GCC, we have also 4 countries, which is Kuwait, Bahrain, also Oman or Qatar, and those countries are really influencers of the big players. So it's quite interesting how the niche of those countries also influence the big ones.
Yeah, that's right. I understand this as a beauty editor with so many fragrances coming in. It's fascinating to see which ones from this region really influence other regions around the world. Hi, Dao. We haven't forgotten about you. Why has China become a major potential market for fragrances?
There was a disruption that happened, I think I spotted early 2015, 14, and the generation of the Juling-ho, the one that are 30 years old and born in the 90s, were the first generation to want to state their individuation. It means that not only for fragrance, but also all the cosmetics consumption, they wanted to prove that they have discernment, they have their own taste. And they started to explore and use fragrance to express who they are. And that's the very beginning of the niche. And why is it big? Because of the volumetry of China. We have 260 million Gen Z who are now starting their exploration in fragrance. It never happened before. It will never happen again. These 3 generations, as per Chinese, like born in the 90s, 95, 2000, are maybe going, as said Lynn, going to be more rational post-COVID because of the economic slowdown. But their drivers are very deep. So maybe they will trade off for more affordable fragrances and we'll have a more polarizing market with ultra premium and very affordable, but they will not stop. I don't think that they want to squeeze their fragrance because it's very exciting for them.
And should brands balance their portfolio and not invest so much in China?
I think that a lot of brands are a bit worried about, the Chinese slowdown, but we still have to highlight that the slowdown is 5%, 6%. So compared to the US or Europe, it's still very good. And I think it's, again, the drivers this willingness to express who they are through the fragrances or impact their moods through the fragrance, this is not going to disappear, even if there is an economic slowdown.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I?
Yes,
Just to
please.
compliment, because I came across some number a few weeks ago for a client, which I think it's kind of interesting, because there is a general misconception that in China we don't, Chinese are not using perfume as regularly as other countries, or it's very new to the market. One, I think it's interesting to know that that perfume has a very, very, very long history in China and was one of the first countries using perfume, or in a different way, obviously through incense or etc. But it's been in China and in the DNA of Chinese since way before other countries. And second, I think it's interesting, I came across this number, since COVID, more than 50% of Chinese are perfuming at home, without necessarily going out. And since the growth and the booming of perfume, more than 60% are using also to go out. So now, even staying at home, they start to perfume. So it really shows a shift in the consumption and also in all the opportunities for brands.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. Lynn, what are the differences between Chinese and Middle Eastern fragrances?
Actually, it's my first time in Dubai, and yeah, I just landed last night. And when I enter this hall, I see so many Middle East perfume brands. For this, I cannot see it in China for sure. And I think if we have such exhibition in China, half of the space will be home fragrance, right? So I think the bigger difference is that for Middle East markets, very mature markets in fragrance, and people is really appraisal on the fragrance on themselves. But for Chinese, just as I said, that the perfume booming is just after COVID, like 3-4 years, and before the market penetration for perfume in China market is only 3%. Now, this year is reached 8%.
Wow.
But it's still very small compared with the mature markets in Europe, US, and the Middle East. But it's booming really fast. So in China, we are still in the infancy stage of the perfume category or the perfume markets. So this one is really mature, one is still infancy. So this is the biggest difference I observe, or I know that nowadays. And the other one is that actually home fragrance becoming very important in China for the young generation, and because they want to entertain themselves even at home. So and they are pursuing a lifestyle for themselves. So different than the Middle East, that you have all the perfume and you sell it through distributors. And in China, they really need the brands to experience the brands as a universe. And if just through distributors, then the consumer doesn't know, oh, if I want to choose this or I want to choose that. So in China, the big difference is that successful perfume brands need to have your own boutique, your own space, for the consumer to really experience your brand. So on the other hand, it also means that the Chinese consumer, because the majority of is very young generation, when they buying a perfume, they are not only buying the scents or the concentrate, they are also buying the visuals, the lifestyle, the visual identity, or the resonation that me and the brand, what the linkage we have. So the lifestyle is so important for China perfume markets, telling the story, etc. So this is, I think, the very two different parts of the two markets, but they also share something in common. Even now, the home fragrance is a very big, very important in China, take half of the market share. But I think the home fragrance is really something similar, like the aquawood incense that you are burning as a ritual at home is actually something really similar. So even we have a lot of, we have differences, but the basis we share really a lot of things in common.
Wow. Yeah. And I saw you nodding your head. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
About home scent and incense, yes. Actually, I think that maybe you're not fan of pop culture in China, but in the drama, still now the youngsters, they see a lot of historical where you have this incense burning and these objects, and we can definitely relate Middle East and China to that.
Very nice. Well, thank you. Benjamin, from your perspective, is there an olfactive palette between China and the Middle East?
Yeah, but definitely, because when I hear about Lin saying that one of the first important for the perfume needs to be very diffusive, very long-lasting. So this, in Middle East, is really a key. And I noticed also that there is some olfactive similarities in China. So when we talk about luminous fragrances, something very fresh and clean, so this you have here, you have this in China as well. You have the use also of red berries. It's very interesting. It's very possible to play with fruity notes in China. It's the same also in Middle East. When we talk about floral, we have rose, we have white floral. You have also that notes, and it's very liked by the consumer. Patchouli also can be interesting and worked so in China. In Middle East also we have these connections. Also the gustative chocolate notes can be accepted as well as in China and also here in the Middle East. Maybe the only concept that needs to be adapted when we talk about cross-link between China and Middle East is maybe the concept of oud. So here the oud, we use it also to burn it like the incense sticks you have in China. As a concept in perfume, the oud is very complex. So it has a lot of different facets, such as incensey, smoky, balsamic, and also leathery. So when we talk about oud fragrances, here we'll maybe technically as a perfumer, I will say there is something green, asperities, a bit vegetable notes in the oud. I think when we go and transfer this fragrance in China, it will have this kind of traditional Chinese medicine. So if we want to adapt the oud for China, we need to reduce and rebalance our oud in GCC.
Okay, that makes sense. And what are the opportunities for the Middle East in China?
Like in terms of opportunities, I will say maybe strengths of Middle East brand in China. I will say it's a strong identity, a strong knowledge, and a strong history. So the strong history, we already all talk about it, but it's the sharing of and the strong history also in Middle East about its essence, about perfume, the art of perfume, etc. This is something that brands really need to capitalize on it, and also to create bridge with also China and their use of essence and their long history of fragrance. So this is something that they share. I will say that it's even stronger and even more well-known here in Middle East. So brand needs to really to not limit themselves on this subject. I will say also a strong knowledge. This is also part of the trend in China, but there is really like a revival in China of craftsmanship and a revival of more traditional method, the art of creation, the way you're looking for ingredients, like all this part of creating a product that also here they have a lot of history, a lot of content around this. So this is something also brand needs to not limit themselves and to jump on this wave in China of the return of craftsmanship. It's not only in terms of smell, it can be also like I met and visited a lot of brands, the way they do the packaging, it's a strong identity, like it's also playing with the materials that exist here in the Middle East in terms of packaging, in terms of the bottle. So there is really something that you can play around as a brand to show your artisanal and craftsmanship here. And the last one, a strong identity. So it's linked also to these two first points. But in China, as Lynn said, you cannot just be commercialized. You need to really have a strong brand image. obviously localized to the Chinese market, but a strong brand image. And this is two ways you can do it, two easy ways, and there is many ways, but two easy ways you can do it, and that work quite well among the Gen Z, is to have a founder, so to humanize the brand. So a brand that you can identify someone behind, it's really important, and you need to not, if you have that in your brand, don't hesitate to talk a lot about the founder, about his history, about why he created the brand, why, what's his love, his interest in the Middle East, worldwide, in China, if there is any links that you can make. It's interesting, and it gives like some humanization of the brand. And if you don't have that, it's okay. It's a location, and this is something there is here in the Middle East. It means that your brand needs to be linked to somewhere. So, for example, if it's linked to I don't know if it's linked, sorry, to Dubai, you need to explain why it's linked to Dubai, what are you inspired by Dubai through your brand, etc. So either a strong place, a strong localization, so it can be the region, and you don't need to specify in a city. The region is enough also. So capitalize on this, or a person behind, the founder, if you have one, push for it in China.
Wow, I hope everyone is taking notes, because that was a lot of great insight. Thank you. Dao, what do brands need to do to integrate from the Chinese culture to capture the hearts of young Chinese consumers?
So how can you capture the hearts of young Chinese? You have to understand how they embrace, how they relate to your fragrances, right? So here come the intercultural gaps, because in China, people speak Chinese. It seems obvious. But very often, I have stories about brands, they don't realize or take care about the fact your names, they will be translated. Even though Chinese can read the English or international names, I have a question for you. Loewe001. Who knows in China the Chinese name, how it's known? It's known as morning after sex. And that was what I call a happy accident, meaning that the brand didn't do anything, and this product very early on was hot on social media and was very appreciated because there was some kind of connection for lots of reasons. So language is something important. And then, of course, the way you smell. And I want to build up on what you're saying, Benjamin. That's very interesting because oud is in Chinese culture for a very long time. But for fine fragrance, it's not something that, people are very familiar with. Actually, Tom Ford Oud Wood can be regarded as the real benchmark for oud fragrance with young Chinese consumers. And for a market that has been opened with scents very like Bluebell from Jo Malone, the success of Tom Ford Oud Wood comes as something very interesting. All the more that it's not about people who started with White Bluebell and then got educated or got more sophisticated. It's people who, when they smell Tom Ford Oud Wood, and it's through my panel on social listening, say that this scent is warm, gentle, comfortable. So it's not the idea that in general Westerners associate with oud that has depth, that can be a bit animalistic, or so the way you capture the hearts of young Chinese is understanding how they smell, how they speak about the scents locally.
Thank you. Benjamin, what challenges do you predict we'll see for China and the Middle East?
Yeah, so for me, I will not enter into challenges, but more opportunities. So I mean, places like the Beautyworld, it's an amazing space where we can meet people from different regions, and obviously from China, and we have some amazing connections here. So also today we have the opportunity to exchange on what we do, how we can improve, and how we can translate Chinese projects using our experience and maybe more mature fragrances in the UAE. So I think the opportunity would be for the people to travel even more, at least with ideas, or to meet even more, to connect, and really to build something very strong together, because I'm pretty sure there is even more links to do within the both region. So I think also we have something to talk regarding the Silk Road on that point.
And Anne, can you tell us about the Silk Road and how it can be used by Middle Eastern brands in China?
Yes. Yes, so as Benjamin said, so there is the Silk Road. I'm like this economic and political initiative leaded by China. I think everybody heard about it. Nobody really see how it's materialized, but it's something that is being talked about since 2013. It's more and more present, and I think it's something that we need to be opportunistic with, even if we don't know exactly how it will be materialized by the politics or etc. As private entity, as brand, we need to use this as a good way to bridge the two regions, to create opportunities. For example, recently it helped one of our clients because it brings lights on travel in the region. So it was a good way also to build content because here in China, some regions that maybe they didn't know before, thanks to this initiative, it was more awareness about this. There is also a new trend and a new envy in China to go to a more natural way of living. So it's what Lynn was saying in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of travel. People are going away from the big city and going more in the region, the western region of China, that where there is also the desert, yes. Desert also. So there is some like very parallel that you can make all of this through this. It's obviously an economic initiative, but that can be useful as a way to bring your brand and to use and create more awareness toward one, the region, and after toward more specifically yourself and your brand.
Thank you. And lastly, Dao, can you share with us the mistakes that brands make when entering the Chinese market?
Mistakes that brands can make, there are three main kinds, I'd say. The first is underestimate the cultural differences. If I come back to Louis V, for instance, I met the director and I asked him, do you know why 001 is such a success? And he was brightening. I said, yeah, it's a success. We're so happy. And I said, he said, because of the concept. And I said, it's because of your name. And a few days after, he went back to me and he said, I called my team in China and they confirmed, yeah, you're right. It's smelling of the sex. Yeah. And the thing is that they have teams in China and they know their products. So they think that, there is no issue. But the thing is that the director asked the Chinese team, why you didn't tell me? And the Chinese team said, you didn't ask. So it very often happens, and it means that unconsciously the brand don't spot where are the blind spots. Second kind of mistakes, big generalization. Like, who is your target? Gen Z. Yeah, sure. 260 million is your target. Or Chinese people like fresh and floral. Yeah, but not only. So you have to dig a bit more because it's a very sophisticated market. Like, they learn very fast. There is a learning curve. And the third kind of mistakes, I'd say, it's the lack of agility. This market is mind-blowing. I'm interviewing consumers every single week, and I can tell you, it's just incredible how they move fast. So by the time the brands spot the insights and act on it, very often the market has moved already. So if I give a quick example,
yes.
Chanel actually, 2014, 2015, a lot of young women, they would start fragrance with Chance, with Coco Mademoiselle. 2 years after, 2016 or 2017, the most savvy or fragrance lovers that say, I don't want Chanel. Everybody can have it. I don't even go to the counter. It's everybody. So even Chanel was losing their customers. Happens only in China. So what did they do? 2 years after, they set up this beautiful exhibition. And the one born in 95 or 2000, they were telling me, wow, I discovered Chanel, and I especially love Sycamore and 1957. So you see, you have to go and gain your customers all the time.
Okay.
And-
So would you say Chanel is one of the brands that you saw get it right after they bounced back from their mistake?
Like exactly, Chanel did it right because they were not complacent, even though, you know, they kind of rule the market. They are very conscious that you have to keep up with how people change, how the taste evolves. And I'd say as well, the ones who get it right are, of course, the local brands. Last year, within 8 months, 2,000 local brands were registered out of the 3,000 registered in China.
Wow.
So it's like mind-blowing. And of course, these brands, it's their market.
Yeah.
And they are super consumer-centric and agile. So we have a lot to learn from them.
Thank you. And did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, just what you are saying with Chanel is just to complement, like the consumer in China are very demanding in terms of experience, in terms of knowing your brand, etc. Is what you said. Chanel missed one opportunity, but they succeed to get back, not through a new perfume, not through a new selling product, but through, for example, an exhibition, which is cultural. Voilà. So you need to always stimulate yourself to stimulate your Chinese consumer. Because if you don't do it, they will go to another brand that will be more challenging, more stimulating, and bringing new idea, new way of consuming.
That makes sense. Well, thank you everyone for your expertise. Thank you so much to everybody, and thank you, Beautyworld.